Авторы жанра хоррор отвечают на вопросы самого страшного фестиваля. Ваш первый пугательный текст и первая сцена, которая должна была испугать читателя. Что это было?
The first stuff that I did that was scary and designed to frighten the reader was probably short stories. I wrote short stories for 3 or 4 years before I even attempted a novel or a novella, anything longer. And so those were probably the first time. So probably right off the bat, I was trying to get in there and mess with people's minds, I guess.
А есть любимый прием – коронка?
I'm not really a gimmicky writer. I don't really have gimmicks per se. I certainly have a process. I think we all writers have a process. It's generally kind of unique to them. But yeah, I would say I have a process, not so much a gimmick. It's more about it's more about going about it, I suppose, than trying to find a trick or a gimmick to get that done.
Есть что-то, чего нельзя в хорроре, некая черта, которую не перейти?
No, I don't think there is anything that you shouldn't do or can't do. I think those lines, I don't think writers should ever be. I certainly don't think we should self-censor, and I don't think anybody else should be censoring us or any artists, frankly. But I think where those lines are, or if they exist, is up to, I think, each individual writer to determine. And it's also up to those consuming that material. I think readers have to decide that for themselves as well. I think that's the best way to do it, where instead of somehow saying, well, you can't do this or you can't go here. I don't think that's the way to do it.
Чем отличается сегодняшний ужас от классики 80-х? Стало ли пугать труднее?
I think the difference between, probably the biggest difference between now and the 80s is diversity. I think there's a lot more voices at the table, getting a lot more opportunities, and I think it's long overdue, frankly, particularly in this genre. And I think it's good. It's an evolution it's an evolutionary thing that's finally, I think, happening. And I don't think we're where we need to be yet, but I think we're certainly on the way. And I think that's good. I think that's nothing but good. And that would be the biggest difference. I think there's a lot more perspectives now, a lot of diversity, a lot of different perspectives, different stories that, a lot of readers didn't always get the opportunity to read, and a lot of these writers weren't given the opportunity to reach. So I think that's good. In terms of scaring people, yeah, it's probably harder now. I started like a little over 20 years ago, and I would say it was easier then. But we live in complicated times now. There's people that are kind of perpetually frightened, and so sometimes you can't blame them, really. So yeah, I would say it's harder now. But I do psychological horror, so I think if you do that well, I don't really think readers have a defense against that, hopefully.
Можем ли мы говорить, что автор хоррора – это мастер манипуляции, который умеет загонять читателя в определенное состояние? Как вы себя воспринимали в таком качестве?
Yeah, I think writers are manipulators, sure. I think all writers are manipulators if they're good at what they do. It's a lot like being a magician. The reader believes they're sort of just going along and controlling things, but they're not. The writer is, and you're sort of bringing them along and showing them what you want to show them and not showing them what you don't want to show them, and making decisions as to when that is. So yeah, I think we're all manipulators. I think I'm pretty good at it. Whether I'm a master of it or not, I'll leave for other people to decide.
3 литературных умения, которыми должен владеть автор, чтобы быть мастером ужаса.
I think learn your craft. Writing is an art, certainly, but it's also a craft, and learn it, hone it, never stop learning, never stop sharpening those skills. I think the other thing is to be fearless when you write. You know, some of the best advice I got coming up from one of my mentors was write as if nobody's ever going to read it. Because what that does is it frees you up. Is you never want to write from a position of being constrained or feeling like you're worrying about reactions or anything like that. Because you can always take things out, which leads me to my third part, which is learn how to self-edit. And that's not to say don't be, editors are very important. Good editor, I don't care how good you are, a good editor is worth their weight in gold. So always work with an editor, but it's a good skill to have is to be able to self-edit and to be brutal with yourself and to be able to know when you need to edit certain things and how to sharpen what you have and make it even better. But the first step to that is self-editing.
Ваши любимые авторы любимого жанра.
My favorite horror authors. I really don't like doing lists because I always forget people. Just a couple of quick ones off the top of my. I've always been a big Richard Matheson fan. Huge Peter Straub fan. King, of course. I think a lot of people today are doing some really interesting things. There's a lot of really good writers out there coming up and also established that are doing really well and doing some really, really, really cool stuff. Richard Chismar, Ronald Malfi, Robert Dunbar, Sandy DeLuca, who I've written a couple of books with over the last couple of years. Eric Shapiro, who's doing some really good, his first novel just came out, it was very, very impressive. He does a lot of screenwriting and stuff too. But yeah, there's a lot of really good voices out there and a lot of up-and-coming people. So I think that this list that I can't remember the fully is probably just going to grow.